Hello students, this is Ms. Vallejo and I'll be going over the details for the proportion project. So you may have seen it on the daily plan for today, and when you click on the link it should take you to the directions. Now before I go over the directions, I actually want you to see the project itself. So let me scroll to an example of the project, and here is an example of what you'll be doing. So in the proportion project, the objective is to find the height of an unknown object. And this object should be taller than you. It should be something that you can't physically measure with, a ruler or with a yardstick. It should be something that's maybe as tall as a light post or a tree or maybe a really tall sign. So here's some information about my object and this picture. This was taken in Eva Beach, which is where I live. It was taken around lunchtime at 12:15. The object I chose was a light pole. I'd also like to see who helped you with this. So for me, it was no one. But maybe a sibling can help take your picture, or maybe a parent or even a friend can help you with this project. And I want you to actually guess how tall you think your object is. So my original guess was 15 feet. So after you find your object, I want you to take a picture of it, and you have to make sure you take a picture when there's a shadow. So if it's raining or if it's really cloudy and if you don't have a shadow, then I recommend doing it another day or maybe waiting until the sun comes out and there's a nice shadow. Now here's what you'll do to find the height of that object. The first thing you'll do is measure your own shadow, and this is where a helper comes in handy, so they can measure the shadow for you. Or if you're doing it by yourself, like I did, maybe you can just use a ruler or a yardstick. The next thing you have to do is write your height. So I'm 5'5", and that's something you should know, hopefully, unless you're growing a lot and that's constantly changing, but you should know your height. The next thing you have to do is measure the object's shadow. So this is where you or your helper can measure the length of the shadow as well, and then the height is still unknown. What you'll then do is turn your feet and inches into just inches, because you can't set up a proportion if you have two different units. So we have feet and inches, and that's not going to work. So we're just going to turn them all into inches. So here's my new measurements. These are the conversions. Okay, and in order to find the height of your object, you can set up different proportions. So I can set up a proportion from my height to my shadow to the object's height to its shadow. Or I can do my height to the object's height to my shadow to the object's shadow. And there are several different combinations, and I want you to find all of the ways to solve or to set up your proportion. So here are the 4 ways that I could have set up my proportions. And then the next thing you're going to do is solve every single way. And you should get the same answer for every single proportion. So you'll end up with maybe a decimal or maybe a whole number. And then from there, you convert it back into feet and inches. Because we don't want to be saying that something is, like 300 inches. We want it back into feet, if possible. And then you'll find your answer. My answer was 13 feet and 6 inches. And hey, that was pretty close to my original guess of 15 feet. So your summary will include what your guess was, what the actual measurement was, and the last thing you'll do is create a triangle with your height, your shadow, and you'll just connect the ends together to make a triangle. And when you do that, you should see that the triangles are similar, and similar just means they have the same proportions. They can be different sizes, but if I were to enlarge this smaller triangle, it should look exactly like this larger triangle. It shouldn't be, like a different shape. It shouldn't be facing a different direction. And this is how you know that your triangles are similar. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the project. So now that you saw an example, let me go back to the directions and give you specific information. So here are the directions, and the description says, use your knowledge of ratios, proportions, similar triangles, and measurement to find the height of a tall object using your height, shadows, and the sun. Here's the Common Core standard we're working with, and the due date for this project is 2 Fridays from now, January 29th, and you'll be presenting this in class. Here's all the materials you'll need, so just look over that. Here's a website that actually shows what time of the day casts the nicest shadow. And I have a competition every year to see whoever can find the longest shadow. I think last year it might have been like 32 feet. So if you can find the longest shadow in the entire grade, then you get some extra credit. All right, so the most important thing in this project is to find a good object. It shouldn't be something that's shorter than you because you can measure that. And it shouldn't be something that's only a few inches taller than you because you can still kind of measure that. It should be something tall enough. And here are some examples, and feel free to be creative. If it's, someone piggybacking someone else holding a sign or a stick, that works too, as long as it's something tall. After you find your object, make sure you take a picture or have someone take a picture for you. And be sure to have everything in the frame. Don't let the top of the object get cut off or the shadow. The entire shadow should be in the picture as well. So after you take your picture, using feet and inches, measure the shadows, and you should already know your height. And do not attempt to climb that object and measure it. This is where the math will come in. After you're done taking your measurements, make sure you write them down on a sheet of paper and do not lose them. Okay, and like I said earlier, you have to convert your feet and inches into just inches, and those are the numbers that you'll use to plug into the proportions. Here are the keys for your proportions. So here are the different ways to set them up. Your height over your shadow is equal to the object's height over the object's shadow, and then the other 3 different combinations. After that, you will solve each one, and you have to show your work. So you can either type everything out and put it into your slideshow, or you can just write it on paper, take a picture of it, and then just insert that picture into your slideshow. And if you still need help with proportions, here's a quick video on a tutorial on how to set up proportions and how to solve them. And then gather all of your information together, put it into a slideshow, and here's a template that you can use, and feel free to use your own if you want to. And if you use the template, make sure you erase the word template on here. Okay, and let me just click on it real quick. It's going to make you create a copy, so click on make a copy. And then I want you to just retitle it using your name. So instead of your name here, just type your actual name. So let's say your name is Mark. And from here, just start entering everything else. Make sure that if you use your own template, be sure to have all of this information in there as well. Okay, and here's a quick tutorial on how to make these triangles at the end, how to draw these lines. And this is from Mr. Goodwin. He's speaking in this video. This is when he used to teach math with me last year. And the last thing is to share your slideshow. So I will, this should say January 29th. I will send a form, or I'll paste the link to the form over here when I want you to submit your project. But for now, we'll just leave it as coming soon. But yeah, after you're done with your project, you'll submit it into the form, and then there you'll present it in class on January 29th. All right, so hopefully this video wasn't too confusing. Oh, and by the way, here's the rubric that we'll be grading you on. Just look over that. And hopefully this wasn't too confusing. If you do have any questions, I'll be there the following week to answer any questions if you have any. And yeah, thank you for watching and have fun with this project. All right, bye-bye.